All right, welcome back. And this morning we're having a look at the 16% VAT that was implemented on the 1st of September, despite members of parliament voting to have the bill implemented in 2020. So all eyes right now on President Uhuru Kenyatta, whether he will sign the finance bill that will suspend the implementation of the 16% or whether he will not sign, which means if he doesn't sign the bill, the 16% VAT will continue being in effect. So right now I am joined by Mathare Member of Parliament, Anthony Oluoch, who will be explaining to us what they are doing as members of Parliament despite the kamkunjing that they will be holding this morning. But before we engage Honorable Oluoch, I'd like us to cross over to Kakamega and speak to our reporter Willie Lusige. Lusige, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us here on KTN News Center. What are the residents of Kakamega saying about the implementation of the 16%? And before you tell me that, what is the fuel price in Kakamega?
Brenda, good morning. Actually, let me start by answering your second question about the fuel prices here in Western. Maybe my cameraman can show around. This is one of the petrol stations here in Kakamega town, and you can see a liter of unleaded petrol premium is going at 129.7 shillings, and we also have diesel, which is now retailing at 117.2 shillings. This is an increment of the new 16% value in added tax. I don't have a specific cost for kerosene, but I'll be finding that in a moment. But you can see also Western region has been highly affected by the new levy on fuel, and also locals here in Western region have been angered on what they are terming as now life has gone up a little bit higher. Even the prices for transportation have increased, and even fares. For example, I can give one good example is from Kakamega to Kisumu. It was 200 shillings to and fro, but now is going around 250 shillings, an increment of 50 shillings on one journey. If you're going to Kisumu, you have to part with more 50 shillings, and even if you're coming back, the same. Even here in Kakamega town, just a normal town service cost by a motorbike used to be 50 shillings, but now it has gone up to 80 shillings, which is now minimum, and sometimes to 100 shillings. Let me just speak to some of the locals here. Let me start with one fuel distributor. Maybe unaweza ukatuambia jina lako na labda kufikia sasa hivi biashara iko vipi tangu ushuru uweze kuongezwa katika bidhaa za mafuta?
Kwa jina mimi naitwa Mohamed Abdikadir, National Oil Kakamega Central, but I would like to speak in English because I'm okay. So first and foremost, the cost of increase on VAT on petroleum product has a negative effect. One, the cost of production has increased, and also that leads to an increase in electricity, which will also lead to job losses. The other issue about the fuel increase is that it has increases the kitchen budget for the common wananchi, the rich, the poor, and also the middle class. And on other issues about the fuel negativity is that the people's daily life has been affected, because since the fuel is affecting the entire chain of production, mostly manufacturing, even the cost of services like transport has also increased due to increase in commuters, which has been, most of the transporters has put the effect on the commuters, which lead into a deficit in the budget.
And we have seen yesterday a large number of oil distributors in Eldoret protested they were not going to buy fuel at that price. Maybe for you, do you have enough stock for the coming period?
And since we placed our orders on last Friday, up to now we didn't receive any stock, and now as we are speaking, we are having a small stocks which can only lead to tomorrow. So we are urging the government to ensure that they shelf aside this VAT for the next 2 years, as we agreed with the Member of Parliament. And on other issues about mitigating the price in terms of an increase in VAT production, we must also pray that the President will assign the amendment bill into effect, which will give us a temporary relief.
Thank you so much.
And other issues is that, in a nutshell, in conclusion, that we pray that the government will listen to the outcry of its citizens. We came from election year last year. The country was improving this year. Last 1 year, now the inflation will go up. and then the side effect will be too much.
Thank you so much. Let me speak to one matatu driver. Wewe unaendesha matatu, labda biashara imekuaje, umepandisha bei, wateja wanasema nini?
Wateja wanalalamika sana kuhusu bei ya yenye wameongeza mafuta kuanzia juzi. Sasa kutoka hapa mpaka Kisumu ni 250. Na kuconvince mtu mwananchi wa kawaida anaona ni ngumu. Sasa tungeomba serikali wasaidie. Hali
ikiendelea hivyo, nasikia watu wengine wamekataa kupanda matatu, sasa wanaamua kutembea.
Kuna wenye wanaamua kutembea kwa miguu kutoka hapa mpaka Kisumu. Na wengine wanajaribu kutembea wapunguze hiyo fare irudi chini.
So when he says people are walking to Kisumu, that is more than 40 kilometers from here. Wewe ni mmoja wale ambao wanamiliki matatu katika eneo la magharibi, umeathirika vipi?
Kwa majina kwanza naitwa Mohamed Ibrahim Hersi. Mimi tumeathirika sana kwa kuongezwa kwa hii bidhaa ya bei ya mafuta. Na tumefanya kwa hii biashara miaka kama 18. Hatujawahi ona mafuta imewahi kupanda hiyo. Tungeomba kwanza Mheshimiwa Rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya, Mheshimiwa Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, atusaidie hiyo value added tax itolewe. Kwa sababu hii kazi ya sekta ya transport ni kazi ya watu wa kujilea. Na transport ikipanda inakuwa ni ngumu sana kwenda kuongeza kwa mwananchi wa kawaida. Kwa hivyo tungelipenda sana hiyo kitu kwa saizi itolewe kwanza, kwa sababu mwananchi wa kawaida anaumia kwa zaidi. Na kitu cha pili, inaleta mvurugo kwa gari. Ukiambia mtu Kisumu ni shilingi 250 kutoka kwa 150, ambao pia hapo mbeleni ilikuwa na mavutano, na leo umwambia ni shilingi 250, inakuwa ni ngumu sana. So tungependa sana hii sekta ni ya kulea wale watu wachanga. Tungependa sana serikali iangalie kwa njia inayofaa.
Na labda tunaposema serikali iweze kupunguza ama kutoa ile dhamana, na isipotoa hali itakuwaje kwa nyinyi ambao ni watu mnafanya biashara za usafiri? Labda mtawaacha mfanye kitu kingine?
Kwa hivyo kama haitatolewa, sisi tutachukua hiyo burden, tutarudisha kwa wasafiri, na wasafiri nao ni Wakenya wenzetu, na inakuwa ni ngumu sana. Na ningependa kuongezea, kuna wale watu wamekuja kwa hizi magari na ni wageni ambao hawajakomaa na wako na loans, wanalipa kwa Muhindi, wanalipa Equity Bank, na maybe kwa hapo mbeleni tulikuwa tunapata kama shilingi 1400. So we'll get the half of the money. Maybe we can get even 2000 in a day. Hata kulipa loan itakuwa ni ngumu. So ningependa sana tusaidiwe na serikali.
Asante Brenda, just allow me for 30 seconds. One motorbike driver, wewe biashara imekuaje tangu mafuta ya pande?
Kwa kusema kweli, mimi kama mwendeshaji wa pikipiki hapa town, kwa kweli tumefika wakati mgumu kwa sababu tuko na shida. Sasa mafuta imeongezwa bei, lakini wateja wetu wa kupanda pikipiki wamezoea tu ile bei ya 50, ama kama ni mahali pa 100 ni 100. Na sasa unaona ukiambia mtu ongeza, mtu anakuambia hapana, hata mimi sina pesa. Kwa hivyo tuko na wakati mgumu. Rais wetu atusaidie mpunguze hii bei ya mafuta. Kwa nini mafuta Kenya inakuwa bei kali na hapa Uganda mafuta tu ni bei kidogo tu unapata mafuta? Kwa hivyo rais wetu atusaidie, kama ukweli anajali maslahi ya Wakenya, waendesha pikipiki wote, apunguze hii bei ya mafuta, atakuwa ametusaidia. Sisi tunatumia pikipiki, tunapata vile tunaweza lipa school fees ya watoto wetu, lakini imekuwa shida. Watoto wako nyumbani sasa hawaendi shule.
Asante sana. I have to cut you short because of time. Brenda, you can see locals here in Western region are so much angered after the new tax was implemented, which is a 16% increment in value added tax on fuel. So we'll just be keeping an eye to see how maybe things will be going on, because there are a lot of fears that in the course of the week Western region will be experiencing a large shortage of fuel. Brenda.
Well, thank you so much, Willie Lusige from Kakamega, just trying to just trying to talk to Kenyans, residents of Kakamega, just to get their sentiments. And in our studio this morning, just remind you, we're talking to Mathare Member of Parliament, Antonio Watch, concerning the 16% VAT. You've had the strong sentiments of residents of Kakamega County. Petrol, 129.
Yeah, that's very high. It's terrible. You can hear the complaints from the people down there. The matatu owners and the boda people are helpless. They're saying they're going to pass this to the common mwananchi. And I think the president just has to act on this.
So the president just has to hear the voice of Kenyans. But at the same time, his hands are tied, because he has to fulfill the agreement the government made with IMF. At the same time, he has to look at the interest of the common mwananchi.
Yes, it's one of those difficult situations where you say you're doomed if you do, you're damned if you don't. Like you said, the president has an obligation and the country has an obligation to meet their ends of the contracts. But at the same time, the common mwananchi has to be listened to. We have a situation where the president, in my view, has to choose to lift the burden from the common man as we find a way of negotiating this contract. In contract, there is usually what you usually call frustration of contract, and we can go back to these people and tell them, look, we agreed in 2013 that we are going to pay our end of the bargain by raising taxes. The only thing we can do is look for other avenues of raising the taxation. But on the VAT on petroleum products, I think it is a bad move. The president has to rethink it. Parliament has to rethink it. And let me say this because I know people have thrown blame at members of parliament, that we could have handled this better. Some of us were not in parliament in 2013, but that's when it first came. It was postponed for 3 years. And I think each time this came up, it was just before or during an election. 2013, we had the election of March. In 2016, I suppose the 2017 election was coming. And so there were political considerations as to what the backlash would have been. There is no election this year, but I think the outrage is so huge, and the president has to look at the goodwill that he's been enjoying on the fight against corruption, his legacy, his big four. All this depends on the goodwill that the people of Kenya will be able to give. So I think we have to retreat, and as members of parliament, I heard the leader of minority say, and I agree, the idea of postponing this as members of parliament was a bad idea, because come 2020, we're still going to be in the same situation.
And you know which begs the question, because the explanation is it was not implemented after it was introduced in parliament in 2013 due to political interest. Then now again, members of parliament are talking about 2020. So how sure are we it will be the same cycle, because 2020, just a few years to the next general election?
Yes, it's never going to be implemented in my view. I think it has always been said that no country has ever taxed itself into prosperity. And so let's look for the alternatives. The honest reality is we have just postponed the problem. Come 2020, we are going to be thinking 2022 is coming. Whoever is going to be running for office is thinking about re-election or elections. So let's go now to how do we deal with this. I think the first thing we have to do is to look at, and this is common, and people are going to say this is the usual thing, but it is where we have to start. Let's begin with Rotich himself. He wants to raise 70 billion from this 16%. Why is he trying to raise 70 billion when a few weeks down the line, the sugar issue came up, unregulated licenses, we were told we lost about 100 billion. 100 billion, Rotich could have raised 70 from that and had change to do something else with. We've lost to corruption in the last 6 months close to 10 billion. In NYS, look at the Kenya Cereal Boards issue, the irrigation issue, the Kenya pipeline issue. There are so many small loopholes in corruption. Thirdly, it is documented that nearly 30% of our budget in terms of annual revenue is lost to corruption. If our annual estimated revenue for this year is 1.7 trillion, that is what we put in the budget. Nearly 500 to 600 billion will be lost in corruption.
It will be lost in corruption.
Yes.
But interestingly, if we had to cut our budget right now, because already Kenyans feel they're overrepresented.
Yes.
You have the president, the deputy president, the governor, the deputy, women rep, representation from persons with disability, you have the MCA. So if you're to cut our budget, don't you think some of these seats needs to be done away with as a way of trying to actually get money to fund this budget? And are you also in support of probably reduce salaries for members of parliament as a way also of raising money to, you know, support the budget?
The cost of maintaining this constitution was always going to be high. And if you're going to do that, of course, you need a referendum. Anything that would cut the budget is good. But I can tell you that cutting down on members of parliament plus their salaries, how much is the budget for parliament? I think it's less than 30 billion. How much is the budget for the judiciary? They were given less than 5-10 billion. What Rotich is looking for is 70 billion. And the budget is 1.7 trillion. So it means even if we were to do with the entire parliament, you will not solve that problem. You cannot raise 70 billion even if you did not have a single member of parliament. So I know this sounds popular, and that the media and the punchline for everybody would be, let's cut down salaries for members of parliament. Even if you got members of parliament to earn zero or had no member of parliament, you will not raise 70 billion.
Okay.
That means we must look elsewhere for this loophole.
Okay,
Yes.
We must look elsewhere for this loophole. And elsewhere for you, Honorable Olwatch, is tighten the loopholes when it comes to corruption, suspend some of the projects.
Yes, yes.
And of course, if we suspend some of the project, it means then even implementing the Big Four agenda will be, it won't be a dream come true, because even the 16% implementation is going to affect the Big Four agenda.
Yes, that is true. And I remember there was Honorable Moses Kuria after the Big Four agenda. Let me begin by saying those are very good, grand ideas, but looking at the cost that these may have on the people, maybe we need to have a conversation as to, can we take all of them together and still do SGR2 and still do 6 highway to Mombasa and back? The answer is no. We must have a national conversation around the question, what is the maximum amount of debt that we can borrow at any given time? After which we say, stop, let's deal with the repayment first. Number two, when we borrow, what do we want to borrow to do? The things that matter for my people in Mathare constituency, as good as it sounds, is not the SGR. SGR is something that perhaps 20, 30, 40 years down the line may reap us some benefits. But what is the immediate thing that matters to the common man? Let's agree on those things. And I have a problem with the president going out without consulting parliament, without any public participation, without stakeholder involvement, and we have another 60 billion loan again.
So are you trying to say that the president should have consulted parliament, stakeholders, members of the public, before he went to China to borrow money?
It's a crisis. It's a crisis. And the reason why there is need to consult parliament is that parliament has three roles: oversight, and looking at things that affect their constituencies and the general public, such as this one. They do that both inside and outside of parliament. There is oversight, and then there is budget and appropriation. If we are going to come to the tail end, when the government has already borrowed, then the role of parliament is simply cosmetic. It is perfunctory, it is mechanical. We cannot properly perform our role of budget and appropriation and deciding how money should be used if already government has already committed our hands. It means in next year's budget, we must place X number of millions in order to meet what Uhuru Kenyatta borrowed this year. So my view is that we need to ask Parliament to sanction any borrowing. We represent the people. In fact, public participation is now part of the Constitution. The budget itself, before we enacted the budget and appropriation, the budget committee had to go around. Why? The input of Mwananchi is necessary as to where their development priorities are. That means if you're going to borrow, that's a priority that needs to be factored in terms of the budget. So in terms of the Big Four, yes, they will be affected. If I was the president, I would say, let's do one Big Four this year. And in my view, one of the Big Four should have been taxation. So should have been dealing with corruption. If, for example, the president were to stick to this lane of corruption, and the idea of 30% that is lost every year, if it were true, that means we would be able to find some 500 billion without a single tax regime.
Without a single tax regime of the 16%?
Yes, without a single tax regime. So if I was Uhuru Kenyatta, I would put corruption and the fight against corruption on top, reduce on wastage on government, and then try to recoup some of these monies that we lose through this budget process.
Okay. Now, before we go to the meeting that members of parliament are having this morning, the Kamkunji, that's supposed to take place in parliament, back to what I'd asked you earlier. This bill was introduced in parliament in 2013. And out of nowhere, days to the implementation of the 16%, that is 1st of September. That's when members of parliament decide, let's vote and have this bill implemented in 2020. Why did it take so long? You only took a few days to the implementation, and that is what so many Kenyans are asking. And then right now you're calling for, you want parliament to be recalled to have this discussion, don't you think also it's premature?
It's important that the public know how Parliament works, because even as we blame Parliament, the discussed in a committee that is chaired by the Speaker. Our calendar is already predetermined and decided through the House Business Committee. I cannot decide for myself what I want to discuss next week. I cannot bring a bill unless it has come from the House Business Committee. Point number 2 is that procedurally, finance bill is how the government proposes to raise what they put in the budget proposals in the appropriation. That is the 1.7 trillion. It cannot come before the budget. So we had the budget at the end of June, at the beginning of July. Then we went on recess. Immediately we came up, the House Business Committee prioritized this. So for me, as a first-time member of Parliament, there was not an earlier opportunity for me to interrogate and deal with this issue. The only thing that we probably need to accept blame over is why we had to suspend this, because we are not going to solve this problem by suspending it. We suspended it in 2013. We did so in 2016. We will still suspend it in 2020.
So what's the way forward? The
way forward is to put a law that will remove completely petroleum products from the tax bracket, and then go back and renegotiate that loan or whatever it is that we need to pay to the international community in terms of the debt. Because the truth of the matter is that we are levying this tax in order to pay
So
debt.
Are you likely to have that discussion during your Kamkunji today that let's just scrap this 16%?
We have to deal with those options. First of all, as members of Parliament, what options do we have? Second option is that we have to put pressure on the president, and I hope there is not need for that pressure. He will read the public mood so that he signs that bill in the amended form.
Okay.
So that in the meantime, as we think about what do we do with this thing, we can explore a law that completely does away with the VAT, and then we make proposals like I have made here. How can we raise? Because the point is, Treasury still needs to find that 70 billion from somewhere.
Okay.
So suspending it or doing away with it completely has not solved the problem. So we must come with solutions.
Okay.
We will discuss those possible solutions. Number 3, we will be discussing the conduct of the CS for Treasury. And I know there are people who are saying, why are you attacking the CS?
And in fact, you're among members of Parliament on Sunday who gave the CS 72 hours to do away with the implementation or face impeachment.
Yes, I did that in Madaro, and we had a church service. We gave him 72 hours. That will expire tomorrow. Together with what members will say in the Kamkunji, I will be saying after the expiry of the 72 hours, what action.
But what will you solve if you impeach the CS and yet it's still being implemented before the president signs it? Because we don't know when President Uhuru Kenyatta...
This is the way I look at it, that the 3 arms of government are coordinate. They complement each other. So that what one arm of government has done, and in this case Parliament, it passed a bill suspending. Rotich does not live in the moon. He knows, and we know, that there was that 2013, 2016 that was suspended. What would he have lost by waiting 10 days for Uhuru Kenyatta to come back, so that we know, will Uhuru Kenyatta put his signature there or not? Okay. Because he has caused unnecessary anxiety, he has caused a lot of suffering to the ordinary people, and pressure on Parliament when we know that we already dealt with that issue. So we think that as a person we oversight Rotich. And remember, the anger members of Parliament have with this particular CS is that he was saved just less than a month ago when there was a proposal to impeach him. That report largely fell because Rotich's name and some other CS was in it. If Rotich had not given some unregulated sugar licenses to some sugar barons to bring in without proper mechanism for seeing how it was done, we would not have lost 100 billion. If we had kept the KRA with the ability to collect 100 billion from those sugar people, Rotich would not be taxing people 16%. So he should not have been in a hurry to put this thing in force when he could have waited, and he knows that we made a decision in Parliament.
Okay, thank you so much, Member of Parliament for Mathare. That is Honorable Anthony Ulwot, just giving us an insight concerning the 16% VAT that came into implementation on the 1st of September 2018. Now, all eyes this morning and for the better part of today will be on members of Parliament in Parliament Building, because they're having a kamkunji at, I think, as from 10 a.m. This morning, just to try and come up with ways on how they will cushion Kenyans from this high cost of living. And now, of course, also all eyes also on President Uhuru Kenyatta. When he comes back, people are waiting to see whether he will the Finance Bill 2018, and should he sign it, then it means the implemented 16% will actually be stopped. Should he fail to sign it, then it means we'll still continue paying the 16% VAT. So that is all we had for you when it comes to this discussion with Honorable Ulwot, Member of Parliament for Mathare. Let's take a short break, but when we come back, we still have a lot lined up for you, so keep it KTN News Center.